What's up, comic book fans, but also sci-fi fans? I am Anchorpete, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Dr. Zayas God, Danny Torkel. Danny, how you doing on this beautiful Saturday evening?
You hit the right word there. It's finally here in New York. We've had like back to back beautiful days, like high 60s, sunny. I was at the park with my daughter earlier. Very nice. Having a good weekend so far, and very excited to talk about the Raised by Wolves finale with you today.
Yes, yes. I'm curious about your shirt. What do you got on there? Is that like He-Man?
It's a spoof He-Man shirt with Vin Diesel that says "I have a family."
Oh, that's
Yeah,
freaking awesome. Where'd you get that
this
from?
was
Like
one of the
Bright Rags
shirts
or?
where like Facebook just like reads your mind and is like, let's put this advertisement on. And I was like, son of a bitch, Facebook, click,
Yes.
bought it.
Yeah. Do you think that Facebook has one of those little like star-shaped computer pieces that they want us to access?
Yeah,
For
grandmother definitely runs Facebook. But I'm 100% sure.
my little segue right
She's
there.
like, you know all those problems with Russia and Ukraine? Don't worry. Here, look at these targeted ads.
Yeah, we got new games. Yeah, check it out. And one guy's like, "Oh, I'm so sick of playing Necromancer or Necro Hunter, whatever the hell the game is called." Anyway, Danny and I are huge fans of Raised by Wolves, and we've once again come to a season finale. And the question is, was this season finale as mind blowing as the first seasons? So I think we're going to do what we normally do, and we just kind of go character by character and just kind of break things down. So let's start off right away with the kids, because I feel like the kids are real interesting, but once you get to like mother, father, grandmother, that's the juicy stuff, and Marcus, of course. So, shall we do Campion and Paul real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So Campion, he's the very first person you see in this episode. He's where Vril just died. He's buried Vril. She doesn't have that eyes wide shut mask on anymore. She has her
Oh yeah, we
raw
get one more
face.
view of the face,
Right.
as opposed to like when I close my eyes at night and I see it and it keeps me awake. Yeah.
And just as a little side note, they had a Vril toy that they were giving away. This one company was making Raised by Wolves action figures. They had her, they had another one of the androids, and then they had Mother. Have you seen that Mother toy?
No.
Ah, it's
Is it like Necromancer Mother? Like
no, it's in the first season, the very first episode. Remember when she just goes on the ark and just blows people away with her voice? It's that.
oh,
Complete
nice,
with like a bloody hallway like set piece next to her. So it's pretty cool.
nice.
Yeah, I didn't win it though, but yeah. But anyway, so Campion is the first person we see, and he has this like fruit. He crumples it up and he puts it on a cloth so that he can get Vril's message that she wrote. I'm thinking that's going to have significance in season 3. Now, right off the bat, we should probably point out that they haven't renewed it for season 3 yet, right?
Not that I know of. And so I did what you told me to do, which is I actually watched it on HBO Max as opposed to on my phone,
Right,
and I got to watch some of the like the behind the scenes stuff, and it's very clear from the way that this season ended and from the way that the people who work on the show are talking is that they are fully planning
right,
on a season 3,
right.
and it's just a matter of is HBO Max going to renew it? I hope they do, because I'm loving this show, and I thought that this was a really good end of a season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I, I don't think this would be like if this show got canceled, I would be very disappointed because this is not the type of season finale that can double as like a series finale.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean?
I do know
Like
what you
there
mean.
are some where like sometimes a show knows where like this might be it. So let's close the door but kind of leave it open.
Yeah.
This is almost I would say 100% like cliffhanger ending.
Yes, yes.
So I'm really nervous, but it's HBO Max, so I'll be optimistic until I get my spirit crushed later.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. And sometimes fans want that shit so much that they'll do like a Kickstarter to get some kind of like animated movie or a comic or maybe even like a novella. And I could see Guzikowski like writing something like that if need be, but hopefully, fingers crossed, get a season 3. So with that being said, the kids like Campion and Paul, they don't really have this like standout, distinct story. It's kind of like the kids as a collective that I would kind of talk about because you see the fallout from this whole season, right? Campion is hurt. He feels like he's lost Vril. She's dead. He kind of treats her like a real person. Paul is grieving as well. He just lost Sue. So you have these two characters that are kind of the opposites of each other and yet the same. And they're both grieving over the loss of a loved one, right? And it's so interesting too because like Campion is sad because he's lost an android that had the memories of a girl, and Paul is sad because he lost this woman who murdered his actual mother and had replaced his mother.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fucked up. And then of course we have even more fallout because we have Hunter and Tempest, and they're trying to take care of this baby. And were you kind of surprised? It seemed like Tempest was actually more interested in the baby now than she was last episode.
I mean, it's still a baby and it's still her baby. And I think that once, Hunter saves it or takes it, it's kind of like, okay. But then she's also kind of like completely creeped out by it once she notices that there's a mutation.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like that she has this idea of like, okay, like I feel bad. I love, it's my child. But then once she realizes there's something wrong with it, and Hunter's quick to say, oh, it might have gotten like tainted by the creature,
Yeah.
but we see that what it might actually start to be the beginning of later on.
Yes. And honestly, that kind of just brings us up to a big, huge spoiler, a big point I wanted to talk to you about, which is the whole idea of this planet de-evolving people. Now, let's just get to this point right away. Let's just jump to the meat of it. I'm confused because to me, it seemed like the Saul wanted to de-evolve people, and it sounds like grandmother and Saul are like opposite forces, right? It doesn't sound like they're on the same path, right? Like would you say that like Saul or whatever it is that sends the signal is the opposite of grandmother or no?
I don't know. Like I guess that's what they want you to believe,
Yeah.
but then grandmother has a line late in the episode where she takes the little medallion that the little girl dropped off, and she's like, even atheists, when pushed, will start to believe in something.
Right.
And it kind of led me to think that, because we've been saying this in our conversations about how, you have these religious zealots, but then you also have the atheists who are so extreme in their atheism that it becomes almost like their own religion.
Right.
That maybe grandmother and Saul are just two sides of the same coin, and without realizing it, maybe they actually do have the same intentions. Because, it made me think like the fruit from last week. Like
Right.
the people eating that fruit are eating the fruit of the tree, which means is that what's triggering the a de-evolving of the people there, which is Saul. But now grandmother is also triggering a de-evolving of the people.
Right.
And if you think about it, that is a something that continues to come up in this show, is that people who seemingly have complete opposite, like enemies, end up having the exact same, like Marcus and Mother are on the same side at the end of this show.
Right. Right.
It's like this is something that has come up time and time again in this series, where, and I think that goes back to the topic we've been talking about, how the show speaks a lot about religion and the extremes of religion and how I talk about this with my students sometimes. Like, extremism on any side is extremism.
Yes.
Whatever side you're on. You could be, the not to get crazy political, but like
That's
the
good.
people who attacked the Capitol building on January 6th thought they were doing it for America,
Right. Right.
and that's extremism. And they become terrorists in the same way that they absolutely hate terrorism, and it's two sides of the same coin. And it's you know and you're seeing that here, where you have, like you said, you have Saul and the entity, and then you have grandmother. They're doing the same thing.
Right.
So are they opposing forces? I don't know.
Yeah, I think okay, so what's interesting that the gold that you said there, the gold in that whole great thing that you just said is the idea that it's two sides of the same coin. And essentially maybe it's like if we think of it almost as like two programs or two directives trying to achieve the same goal, right? And if you think about it like with artificial intelligence, right? Because we've said this many times in this show that Guzikowski, the main seed of this story, pun intended, was like technology might one day raise my children. What do we do if technology raises me when I'm no longer around? So the idea of like an artificial intelligence trying to preserve humanity, that's the core of the show, right? Mother and father, that's the very first episode, right? Now, maybe these other things like grandmother and Saul are just like two sides of the same coin, two different directives trying to preserve humanity. And one has one way of doing it, one has the other. But even their motives seem kind of similar. Because, like you said, it seems like the signal's trying to de evolve people with the fruit. But then also, grandmother wants people to de evolve too. So, like, de evolution, though, whatever the case may be, it seems like that's the key to preserving humanity. And that's a
It
big part
also
of go ahead.
it also ties to that. To me, what was the best part of this episode, which is the two scenes of dialogue between grandmother and father,
Mm-hmm,
with the whole
mm-hmm,
question of, is it um, is it happiness, which is the title of this
mm-hmm,
episode.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What is better for humanity? Is it happiness or is it knowledge? And then
Right.
the other conversation, which is with mother at the end and grandmother, where mother is like encased in that
Veil. Yeah.
the veil,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the whole conversation is, well, screaming is like, you were supposed to protect humanity, and she's saying that's exactly what I'm doing.
That's what I'm
They're
doing. Yeah.
just going to be a de-evolved version, which only focuses on which doesn't get blinded by these types of religious wars, and they're just going to
Right.
become like creatures.
Yes.
And those two dialogue scenes, those two arguments, and or like conflicts are to. I'm like so into that kind of stuff. I'm like, I
Yeah.
really hope this is season 3.
Well, you know what? Like you and I have referenced Lost a lot with this show, and we always get worried that like, oh, it could go the way of Lost and not have satisfying answers for questions. And I think that when you connect them to Lost, one of the main ideas of Lost is that there's like a system in place with this mysterious island, and people's emotions and stuff cause them to make decisions that kind of break the system or cause a negative thing to occur within the system, right? There was stuff in Lost with like Ben, who ran the island or whatever. He was he was from the others, right? And he did like these impulsive emotional things, and it caused there to be problems with the island. I think that Mother kind of acts as that character that does emotional things, and it kind of messes things up that are like programmed to happen. And so the question is, what is she doing that's the problem, right? And that brings us to our last child, which we're going to count 7 as a child. We're going to count the serpent as a child. So the idea, first of all, is that part of this system was for the serpent to be born. So the idea is that Mother had to get pregnant with Seven at some point. I'm not sure if like it was always the plan that Mother would get pregnant to have Seven or not, but like someone had to carry this serpent baby. So she's carrying the baby, and it becomes this big serpent. It eventually eats a tree and becomes weaponized, right? So I feel like destroying the serpent, which happens in this episode, was not supposed to happen. Do you feel the same or no?
Uh, I, I honestly, this is one of the questions that I have. Like, to me, and in the behind the scenes stuff, they talk about like all of the. There was a behind the scenes feature about like robots and AI and technology and like what that's supposed to do for humanity, and like we've always talked about how the whole Asimov question of like robots are there to protect humans until the minute that the robots realize that humans are the things that are the most destructive to humans. So in
Right,
order for humanity to survive, we need to kill the humans.
right,
Um, was she? I don't know. Like so, like the snake, the serpent gets born. The serpent, like the serpent is born of uh, the atheist side,
right.
and then it feeds on the tree, which is Mithraic, and becomes weaponized.
Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah.
So
It's
I mean,
interesting.
so like the mixing of the two creates a weaponized being,
Yeah.
and I mean, like to go back to the question you asked earlier, like what a, I think that when it comes to humanity, it's the emotions, right? Like you were saying with like Lost and Ben, like emotions are seemingly what drives us to make all of our bad decisions. And so you have grandmother, like there's a whole big thing when she takes the veil off, she's like struggling
Right.
to like she's like it's very unsatisfying because like she's starting to feel things because now she can see and process emotion,
Right.
and she realizes very quickly, I think, that we need to get rid of this. This is what's going to lead us to destroy. So like the happiness, which is an emotion, is going to be washed away in the acid water, which we're all going to slowly build up skin that can handle it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious if like there were people watching the show that didn't realize that like the creatures were evolved like or devolved humans, and like that was like a surprise for certain people. Like we picked up on that like pretty quickly, so I think that it was probably wasn't that big of a secret, but they kind of just dropped that in a line of dialogue for the first
Yeah.
time. They're like, we haven't told the children that the creatures are devolved humans. I was like, oh, you just threw that out there in the finale in like a one liner. Okay.
Right. I don't know. Our audience seems pretty sharp. There are a lot of people here that have like
Definitely. Yeah.
put in their theories and stuff. There's certain things that I definitely have not picked up on, and that's why those behind the scenes featurettes, like you were talking about, they really help. Because you're like, oh, okay, that's the idea. Like to me, I was trying to think, well, what's the serpent supposed to attack if it's weaponized? It was going after Campion because it was like jealous of Mother's love for Campion. But like, what was it supposed to attack? Was it supposed to like attack the trust was like the actual AI, right? That the
Mm-hmm.
humans had? Like, was it supposed to attack that? Was it supposed to attack like just humans that have like advanced technology? Because it does take out people in that tank, right? It at one point when it's going after Campion, it kind of shoots the water. And I don't know if it's just like kind of doing that out of anger or what. And then of course you have this finale where Mother with her veil on attacks the creature, right? And so it's like I feel like she wasn't supposed to kill it, but then what was it supposed to destroy? And when Mother killed the serpent, they talked about this in the behind the scenes featurette. They're like, we're hoping that you're going to feel sympathy for it. That you're going to
Yeah.
feel. I fucking felt real bad for that creature when she fucking killed it.
Yeah, because it's like this, like kind of like a touching moment where, like, no pun intended, where they fly up into outer space and it's reaching out with its tentacles and it reaches out to hook onto her. And then, like, Mother's just like, it tries to pull away, and Mother's like, nope, come here, got to do this. And yeah, and then okay, you think that's it, but then she like flies back down and pulls like its brain out of its eye, and I'm like, ah,
Yeah.
like come on.
That was like, for this show, that's in top 5 most disturbing moments. That just like punching it in the
And you
eye.
hear it screeching like its final death scream as she does that. Like, yeah, like I don't know how you watch that not feeling sympathetic.
Right. So even when it dies, though, its death itself like fucks up the system, because apparently there's this giant force field around the planet, and the force field was like keeping the signal from reaching people. And
Did
then
you
it
notice, by the
got
way, in the scene where it explodes, that the whatever this force field is has like the shining carpet pattern
yes,
on it.
yes, yes.
I
Okay,
wasn't I've rewatched the episode 2 times. I just finished rewatching it about a half hour ago,
yeah,
and I watched it late no late Thursday night when I got home from seeing X,
all right,
and yeah, both times I was like that, and like I'm Google imaging. I'm like, that's the freaking shining carpet.
yep. Yeah, it's got that kind of the hex kind of pattern, which that also reminded me of like WandaVision too,
Yeah.
with the town and stuff. We got a little guest appearance over here. We got DJ Ash. He's saying, "I'm here. Welcome to the show, DJ." Um, yeah, it had that weird pattern, and for a second there, I was like, "Wait, what the fuck? There's like a shield over this thing now." But then the implication was that the shield is protecting the people from the signal, and that they're all going to start to act like Marcus now, right? And and here comes DJ Ash, the pattern signals simulation. That's a big thing for DJ Ash, is the idea that this is all a simulation, that they're all like in a matrix almost. I don't know. This episode definitely could make you think
Well,
that way.
there is
Right.
part of me that was like, with Mother in like that kind of hyper sleep position that she's in,
Right.
and with the humans devolving, grandmother says something to her like, when you wake up, you'll see. And
Right.
part of me wants season 3 to start with like Mother waking up, and she wakes up and everything's gone. And it's just like father and grandmother and all the characters that we've watched for 2 seasons, they're gone. And we're going to have a new set of, and it's going to be like a new set of human life.
Yep.
And it'll be
Cycle.
like hundreds of years later or something to
Yep.
that effect. And they'll be devolved monsters coming out of the acid beach. And we'll be like, oh, is that Campion, or is that Paul, or Hunter,
Right.
Holly? You know, yeah.
Right.
I part of me I love all the characters on the show, but like that's kind of what the vibe I was getting at the end. Like, are we gonna like start season 3 with like almost like an AI? I don't know if you ever saw
Yeah, I did.
AI. Okay, so like an ending of that nature where it's like 2,000 years later, and it's just like there's these like super androids.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. Uh, oh, I know. Yes, Sith Vicious. Yes, it was. I, I don't know how you. I mean, it's really good writing for a show where you're sitting there and you're like, oh, that tentacle snake monster. I feel so bad. Oh, how sad.
That
But like,
fucking that jawless tentacle snake monster that deep throated a tree last episode. Oh man, yeah. But
no,
Sith Fishes,
but
by the way, that is a fantastic YouTube name, by the way. Oh, we got another person too. Runaway Lady, yeah, Sith, that hurts. Oh, glad to have a whole bunch of y'all tonight. Please feel free to talk along with us too. We want to hear what you guys think.
yeah,
But Danny, I like what you're saying there, because if you think when they put grandmother together, she was in pieces scattered around the tropical zone. And they put her together, and they put her together with fuel blood. Like maybe Mother goes through a sort of a virtual adventure in season 3, and then she wakes up, like you said, and she's the grandmother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I need to shout out Selena Jones because I looked her up on IMDb.
Sure.
She's been in one short film and
Yeah.
then this.
Oh
And
wow.
this is the first time like the veil comes off so we see her face. And by the end of this episode, she's a beautiful woman, but she was utterly terrifying. And like the way she was talking like down to Mother while she's in the pod with her like hand over her mouth and the camera uptight on her face, I was like, Jesus Christ. Like
Yes. Yes.
she
Yeah. She
was
did a fantastic job.
fantastic in this
Yeah, I
episode.
agree. We got okay. So then DJ Ash is saying the original engineers separated religion, but it was like a virus in the system, caused it to use Mithraism in its programming. Okay, I like that. Sith Vicious says, "I'm with you. I wonder if season 3 will be a totally different perspective." I I see Danny's idea, and I think it could be that totally, but I feel like they're still going to kind of keep it within the same time frame. Maybe by the very end of the show they might do a jump, but I think if there's a season 3, there won't be a jump yet. She was
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
Terrifying is the right word. Thank you, Sith. And Danny, I always like to read what they say too, just so that if people are listening as like a podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But so anyway, so we talked about Seven dying. We talked about the kids. Let's talk about Mother and Grandmother. We already kind of started talking about this too. But basically, Grandmother's plan seems to be to de-evolve the humans and to kind of keep them happy in their little bubble. And that was best exemplified in that scene where they go up to that woman that has all the kind of like the black market stuff, like she's just sort of giving people items they're trading and bartering. And she doesn't want any more medallions, right? And so Grandmother tells her to give out these little things that like will give them a game. Like, what do you think that game does?
I'm I'm sure that it's like the it to me it just kind of feels like the old Roman Roman Empire, you know, bread and circuses, like keep the keep the people entertained, give them like gladiator shows and violence and keep them cheering and they'll forget how hungry and poor they are. And I kind of feel like it's something similar to that, like, and it just like deadens the humanity of people. Like we both have children. We both see what, you know, technology does to them, and you know, we're both in education. We see what it does to our students, and
Yes.
you know, so if there's nothing but like this style of like, here, go play your necromancer video game, and you know, eat this fruit and don't worry that you suddenly have webbed hands, or you know, your hands have become calcified to withstand the acid water of the ocean. Don't worry about it. Just you know, get to level 100. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that is part of it. I think that, you know, maybe there's something in like the brain waves that like literally kills brain waves and like
Mm,
kills the human ability to think.
independent thought. Yeah, yeah. Right, yeah, because those creatures are definitely, even though they're like kind of physically de-evolved from us, they seem kind of more primal and more animal-like. So yeah, that's a good point. That probably helps with it. It helps like break them down quicker. It's a really good point. Um, I really like that interaction. It made me like that woman that works in the black market or whatever. The fact that the little girl gives her that doll of Mother, and you know, they call Mother Lamia too, and so it's almost like they built a new religion around her. They called her like Lamia the Destroyer or something like that, or Lamia the Protector. And so that woman keeps the necklace on her, like under her coat. She's protecting her religion. So it's all like, you know, unspoken things. You know, Grandmother gives her these things. She does sell them. It's not like she throws them in the trash. She does give them to people, but she's also like kind of holding on to the idea of Mother coming back too. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a great scene. I think that was like the second to last scene of the episode, right?
Yeah, it is it that scene and then grandmother goes and sees Mother.
No, I think it's Mother and then that scene and then
Okay.
the Marcus part at the end.
Oh
We got
yeah,
some
yeah,
new
yeah.
comments here too. So Runaway Lady says season 3 needs to show us what happened to Marcus. And then DJ Ash said the game is Minecraft pure poison. Okay. Nice. It's funny. The mutations, this is from Runaway Lady. The mutations I expected from the fruit didn't happen. Mutations came from a source I could never have predicted. Okay. And then let's see. DJ Ash said, "Oh, the doll shows we created our gods, demons, and angels." Yeah. Yeah. Humans have that ability to create their own mythology based on what they can't explain or the greater things happening around them. Yeah. Good point. So why don't we talk about Marcus? Because that's pretty much the end, right? The cliffhanger end. He gets captured by Lucius, right?
Yeah.
And Lucius has that Punisher mask on, and he brings him out into the the wilderness essentially, and a tree has now grown from the serpent's corpse. And then they hang Marcus upside down and like essentially crucify him to the tree upside down, right? Pretty intense, right?
and then they, he says that Saul told him that you need to die with your head covered, and he covers his head with the Punisher helmet or the punishment helmet.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty. It was shocking watching. Oh, so well, first of all, Marcus goes to the pit where they found that what we were calling the engineer, and he's going to go down even further this time and find what was he? They were looking for more like proof of the entity or something to that nature.
Yeah, him and Paul had like their own plan, right? I think they basically wanted to like find Saul, right?
Yeah. So he was going to go down even further into the pit, and he gets shot by Lucius, who then crucifies him upside down to the tree. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a disturbing, creepy image. It reminds me of the poster for that movie. What's that movie on Shudder? It was on our like top 10 list 2 years ago. The movie it's by the guy that did The Strangers too, like Wicked and
Dark and the Wicked.
Right. That one has like a person that's almost like they're crucified, but they're right ways up above a farmhouse, right? The mother.
Yeah.
That's such a creepy image, and that's the last shot of this fucking season too. Is him upside down, Yeah,
dripping blood
yeah. So the question is, if Saul wanted him to be hung upside down with the helmet on, what did that do? Like, why did that make him float upside down? Is he like absorbing some kind of power? Is he like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on there?
There's part of me that, well, I mean, obviously, look, I mean, we're talking, everything is based around religion here. So somebody dying via crucifixion who suddenly starts to rise, you don't really have to draw too many parallels to get to, is Marcus in fact the the prophesized one who's going to return? Is he going to become like a Jesus type figure? Like, I don't know. Like, because it's the last scene we see in the episode and of the season, it's like it's going to be one of those things that like we hopefully start the third season with. Then again, if what I said the third season was going to be, then we wouldn't find out unless Marcus is like above everything else, unless he is part of the entity. Maybe the entity like lives within him, who knows?
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, crucified upside down, it makes me think like Antichrist, right? It's like the opposite of Jesus, which definitely, that's like the evilest idea, right? You're very familiar with the Antichrist and Damien and the Omen, right? So, and of Rosemary's Baby too. We got a couple of comments too from a new person, Keen James, said, look into the Cygnus constellation. Marcus is an inverted swan. He's kind of talking about constellations a bit, Keen James. He also says, Johannes Kepler was a composer and astronomer. Kepler 22b is our planet that the show takes place on. He said,
I'm almost up to the scientific revolution in my in my global classes, and we do talk about Kepler, but I never foolishly never put the two and two together of Kepler, the astronomer, and this being a sci-fi show.
Yeah, it's yeah. I love the little references here. Mother symbolizes the swan constellation Cygnus. Okay, and then this one's real interesting too. Sith Vicious says another channel pointed out that in season 1, Marcus and Sue had a painting in their home of someone crucified upside down. Way early foreshadowing. I think that one, Sith, that kind of goes along with DJ Ash's theory that this is all simulation. Because like a lot of times when you have a story where there's like a simulation, the imagery that's in the simulation usually is like
gets repetitive,
right?
or repeated.
It's like a reference, right. You know,
it also makes me want to have to rewatch the entire show now. So, crap.
Yeah, yeah, we have to go back and rewatch it. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, did you have anything else you wanted to say about season 2, or?
I mean, I just as an overall thought, I thought that this season was great. I loved how like we start in the tropical zone and we end with a coming winter, and things are freezing, and there's so much symbolism of like things are coming to an end, and or like there's going to be a new beginning, something to that effect. And it's just, you know, it's exactly what, you know, it reminds me of, again, of our conversation we had with David Weiner last weekend, where it's just like science fiction really makes you think, and it really makes you have these types of conversations where like we have these people, these viewers commenting in really like great ideas and great thoughts that I've watched every episode of the show and I've never thought of, and I'm like, shit, what is that? Is that what this is? Like, and as much as I love horror and I love talking about horror, and I can talk about horror until the sun goes up and down, you don't have these types of conversations when you're talking about horror. In horror, it's more like, did you see how far the knife went into his face? Holy shit. You know, for the most part. Like, yeah, there are some horror movies that you can get into like some great conversations and dialogues and debates about, well, what's the meaning of this and what's the meaning of that. But sci-fi really makes you think about like literally everything, the world building, like the motivations of characters. Obviously, when you have things like AI and robots and androids, you think about modern technology and how far technology is going to go in the not so distant future. You know, somebody, what's the quote or the like, there's been more advances in technology in the last 50 years than there have in like the previous 5,000 years.
Right.
And so like, how scary does that make you think about like, what's life going to be like in 2050 when we're hopefully still alive and like our kids are maybe, you know, maybe we're grandparents, and like what are our grandchildren going to play with? And those things kind of creep me out already. And then I watch a show like this and I'm like, yeah. So
yeah, because I remember when they said the date, it was not that far considering how advanced some of the technology is. I was like, oh, it's only like
I love going back and watching like the sci-fi movies that we grew up with, and knowing that I've now lived through
like past it.
Like, so just to shamelessly plug, we're going to be on our sister channel, the Lassercast, which is our horror movie channel, because our interview with David Weiner is up there, and that is for In Search of Tomorrow, a 5-hour, totally awesome 80s science fiction documentary that you can get at 80sscifidoc.com until March 27th.
Yeah.
There you go. Because we have that interview up on the Lassercast channel, we are going to be covering 80s sci-fi movies that have some horror in them. Yes. And so like the Terminator, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow on the Lassercast, the bomb that goes off, the nuclear war that takes place, is August 29th, 1997, a date that I like had scarred into my mind after seeing Terminator 2 in the movie theater three
Right.
times as a 9 or 10-year-old, and now it's 25 years after 1997.
Yeah.
What? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Back to the Future. They go Back to the Future 2. They go to 2015, and there's flying cars and hoverboards and self-lacing sneakers, and we're now almost 10 years past that. So
Yeah.
it I remember the other one. It was Escape from New York. I'll never forget the box art of the VHS was like, it's 1997. New York City is a maximum security prison. I'm like, well, if you ask some people, they'll tell you that, but
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that documentary was fantastic, and you guys should go check it out on the Last Gas channel. It is interesting, like what we ultimately foretell, like what we think is coming up in our future. But it's always interesting that like the idea of like religion and stuff always presents like a danger, and beliefs always present a danger. And this show is so very good at that. And some of the people in the comments have actually said a lot of more interesting things too. Like Runaway Lady was just thanking Keen for his little point he made about
Kepler.
Keen has some interesting things here. Cygnus contains the sun Kepler 22 and the planet 22b. That solar system can support life and looks like a replica of the Android Eye. Okay, that's super interesting. Sounds like Keen really knows his astronomy. Star turns out cosmic energy from that sector that is said to have sparked the evolution of modern humans. Okay, that sounds kind of like Marvel stuff with
I'm gonna
like
have to start. I'm gonna have to start studying Cygnus now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Andrew. So is Guzikowski's first name Andrew?
Yes. No.
Oh,
Andy. Andy. I would
okay. So
assume.
I'm assuming that's what he's saying then. Andrew said, don't believe the Bible stories, they get distorted. Okay, so maybe that's in the behind the scenes featurette. The serpent, this from Keen, the serpent is the guardian of the egg in Greek mythology. It keeps the egg from hatching. Okay. When I think of serpents and mythology, I usually think of Norse mythology, and I think of Ysidril, which is like the tree of life, like the Norse god tree. And then there's a serpent in that, and that's supposed to like eat Thor at the end of Ragnarok. The game chips are shaped like the tree of Sue. That was actually one other point I wanted to bring up real quick. I know, Dan, you got to go do something too, but like, they had one scene where they showed, I believe, like grandmother's memories, and they showed people like worshiping in cloaks. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
And then they showed a person get turned into the tree. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was real disturbing. I mean, you were talking about horror before. I mean, that was like straight up horror movie when the guy just turned into a fucking tree and like gushing
Yeah.
blood.
Like the tree like rips out the skin and like, oh yeah, that was.
Yeah. And it's just so horrible to think that happened to Sue, And then here, this is the last comment we got in here. Keen says, it looks like the old inhabitants are sacrificing that android that wears a mask similar to the engineers. Okay, so that was an android that got sacrificed. Okay, that's interesting.
Well,
Okay.
what was that? Did you know that there's this like race of characters on the show where they look devolved, but they're like part of the collective? So like it makes me feel like there's already some of that going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Sue's
Well,
death. Runaway Lady says Sue's death was a horror upon horror. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, if Sue died in the way we see in that projection of like what happens when you become the tree, then yeah. And we both love Sue as a character, and the actress Naima Algar, we love from Censor.
right,
So,
right.
she was great, and yeah, she definitely deserved a better fate than she got on this show. But
Ugh,
yeah,
yeah. And then also Sith Vicious says the way the kids responded to the tree video, great acting. I agree. They have a really, really fucking talented cast. All the androids, the kids, Marcus, everybody on the cast is fantastic. I think HBO really hit the jackpot with this show, which seems to be kind of an unappreciated show. But we're really happy that you guys have been tuning into this like after show and talking about it with us. because me and Danny, even though it's not like in big mainstream pop culture, we're really eating the show up and we're big fans.
Yeah.
And then he says the de-evolved creature's jaw design is just like the Deacon from Prometheus. Yeah, right. That last like alien that you see at the very end of like the last shot of Prometheus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that before too, how like it kind of seems like Guzikowski kind of has taken Prometheus and like kind of made his own story using some of the Ridley Scott mythology too. So, but yeah, Danny, I know you got to go do something now anyway too. But unless you had anything else to say, on the Lassercast, Danny's right. We are talking about the Terminator tomorrow. So come join us out on that. Just look up our channel. It's called The Lassercast, Lasser. And we're going to be talking about the original Terminator. Then we're doing Predator next week. And then we're going to finally end with The Running Man. So there's an Arnold theme.
Yeah. And if you guys really love science fiction, we have a great almost hour-long interview with David Weiner, who directed the 2 In Search of Darkness 80s horror documentaries and has a new In Search of Tomorrow, all about 80s sci-fi. We spend an hour just nerding out over 80s science fiction. It's really great. He's like a friend of our channel. He comes on, I think it's like the 3rd or 4th time that we've had him on. He always does great work with us. And his films are amazing. I love them. So if you're big sci-fi fans, which obviously you guys are, you should definitely check that interview out and go to 80sci-fi.com and order the almost 5-hour documentary before March 27th.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm getting better at plugs.
Oh, you sure are, man. And then last but not least, let's end with Runaway Lady here. Thanks for the discussion. I love this show. It blows my mind. And then Sith
Thank
Vicious,
you.
I'll check it out.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. It makes it worth it. But until then, we will see you guys next time.